This is an obelisk, carved out of solid pink granite. Here's another one. And another one. And another one. And there's many more of these all around the world, and they all came from Egypt. And we're led to believe they were all made with these. I don't think so. Today, we're setting our metaphorical sails all the way to Upper Egypt's sun-kissed, palm-fringed southern city, Aswan, where modern Egypt meets ancient Nubia, where the sandy desert landscape borders the cool blue Nile. Aswan is a city rich in historical sites, and one of the must-see highlights is the Aswan Quarry, famous for producing high-quality red and pink granite used in the creation of many iconic Egyptian structures, including the Great Pyramids and various temples. Tucked away in this quarry, like a sleeping giant, is the unfinished obelisk. This colossal structure, hewn from the bedrock, is a silent chronicle of the past, riddled with enigmas that have puzzled historians and archaeologists for centuries. I was lucky to be able to see the unfinished obelisk for myself on a recent visit to Egypt. The sheer scale of the unfinished obelisk is hard to take in. Even in this unfinished state, it is truly impressive. It is 137 feet, or approximately 42 meters in length, and has been calculated to weigh in at a staggering 1,200 tons. In fact, if the ancient Egyptians had finished carving it, it would have been the biggest obelisk they ever produced. It was surely quite an undertaking for the ancient Egyptians to carve such a colossal structure out of solid granite, considering the tools available during that time. It is a fact that the dynastic Egyptians extracted stones from this quarry, but they used the wedge and chisel method, which left distinct markings on the stone, and evidence of this can be seen in the quarry today. However, surrounding the unfinished obelisk, we only find these strange U-shaped scoop marks, which are quite distinct from the marks left by the wedge and chisel quarrying method. The mainstream narrative would have you believe that the quarry workers sat shoulder to shoulder and pounded away at the rock with dolerite balls to slowly and painstakingly carve the obelisk out of the bedrock. Just try this technique for yourself and you'll realize how ridiculous this thinking is. Even though there are obvious flaws with this theory, because many dolerite balls were found surrounding the unfinished obelisk, this is the conclusion drawn as to what they were used for. It's also been suggested that the dolerite balls were used as a type of marble that when put under the granite blocks made them easier to move around, a theory which is far more plausible to me. I'm just not sure how well this will work in a sandy desert. These scoop marks, which are found all over this quarry, are too large and too regular to have been made by hand tools. Some suggest they might have been made by some unknown machine, a technology lost in time. I'm not going to go into the origin of these scoop marks, as I'm clearly no expert. The truth is no one really knows for sure how they were made, and it's just one of the many mysteries surrounding this colossal obelisk. Another question that has puzzled historians and archaeologists alike is how this 1,200-ton block of stone was supposed to be lifted from its position here in the quarry and transported to its final destination. Theories suggest they would have used a system of ropes, ramps, and a lot of manpower to load this ginormous stone block onto a boat and float it down the River Nile. There is an area in the quarry called the harbour, or the docks. This is a name given to it in modern times, as it's hypothesized that this area would fill with water with the annual Nile inundation, and this would allow boats to dock, to be loaded with blocks of granite. What is fascinating about this area is that there's evidence of those strange scoop marks here, similar to those surrounding the unfinished obelisk, suggesting an interesting connection that we'll explore in a moment. The monumental size and weight of the obelisk would have presented a daunting challenge if this area indeed served as a harbour. Essentially, it comes down to physics. A boat partly floats and partly sinks, according to how much weight it carries. And there's just not enough space in this area to contain the volume of water that would be displaced to keep a boat with a 1,200-ton load afloat. Here's Ben from Uncharted X explaining this conundrum.
But there's just not even remotely enough water available in here to displace a load like that, where you have 1,200 tons or thereabouts of granite. You're never going to get a boat in here that can actually take that type of a load.
This area of the quarry, buried deep under the sand for thousands of years, was only excavated in 2003 by the Aswan Office of the Supreme Council of Antiquities. What they discovered hiding beneath the desert sand and rubble was a treasure trove of pre-dynastic drawings. If these rock paintings were indeed made by the pre-dynastic Egyptians, then it is logical to deduce that the quarrying of this space had to be done before the paintings were made. This deduction raises perplexing questions about the timeline of the quarry's history. I'll let Yusuf from the Kemet School explain.
When we look at depictions like this, that looks like Neolithic era depictions, how can it be on top of something that was extracted in the New Kingdom or the Middle Kingdom? That's one of the main stone mysteries that we have here.
And if you're thinking the pre-dynastic Egyptians probably didn't quarry granite, then take a listen to this clip where Dr. Adel Kalani, a renowned Egyptologist, mentions that granite was used in the palace of Hierakonpolis, the ancient pre-dynastic capital of Egypt, which reached its peak about 3600 BC.
And also part of the palace in Hierakonpolis, Nichil, the ancient pre-dynastic capital of Egypt. Also it's made from granite.
So there, you heard it. The pre-dynastic Egyptians were quarrying and transporting granite in pre-dynastic times. And where do you think they got it from? If the quarrying of this harbour area and the scoop marks left behind in the rocks were made in pre-dynastic times, are we to conclude that the unfinished obelisk surrounded by identical scoop marks was also carved during this time period? The evidence is compelling, and we're left with a tantalizing mystery. Who created these scoop marks? How were they made? And when were they made? We may never have the answers to these questions, but if we did, it would definitely reshape our understanding of the ancient Egyptians and their stoneworking capabilities. However, considering the sheer scale, complexity, and the precision required to execute these obelisk projects, there is a growing consensus among some researchers that this could not have been achieved by hand, using just pounding stones. There is a strong possibility that these ancient civilizations might have possessed some advanced stoneworking knowledge or technology that is lost to us today. What do you think is going on here? Leave a comment below. And thanks for watching.